Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining me tonight. This is Can We Talk with Adrienne, and I am Adrienne. And tonight we're going to talk about... I guess we'll wait till the song is over. Your name, baby. Come on, talk for a minute. I want to know your name. Talk to me for a minute. Alexa, pause. Thank you.
You're
welcome.
welcome.
DJ Deborah.
And DJ Avadine.
Welcome to Can We Talk with Adrienne, where we talk about issues in family and community, in education and religion. Thank you for joining us, those who thought it not robbery to come and join me tonight and get involved in the conversation. The conversation wouldn't be a conversation without you, so I'm glad that you're here. Tonight we're going to talk about crisis in the family. You know, I've talked about crisis in the community, and last week I was able to step in for Francesca and talk about domestic violence among the elderly. And today it came into my spirit that, you know, I might as well stay along that road and talk about crisis in the family. Crisis happens in families all the time. And the problem is, a lot of times we're not prepared for it. You know, how do you prepare for a crisis in your family? A crisis can be anything from a death, a crime, a serious crime, or, you know, something like hurricanes, or, you know, something that the family sometimes is in some control over, and sometimes it's nature. But what happens when these crises happen? I've known families growing up that used to have fire drills in their homes, or they have emergency drills in their home. In Florida, it was important for families to have drills when there's a hurricane or tornado hit. I actually witnessed a tornado, and I'm crazy, so it was interesting to me, but for some people it's a very scary sight. And I went to the back door, and it was on the news, and it was saying what neighborhood it was seen him touching down, and I ran to the backyard. And, you know, there's a window at the backyard, and my godson, David, who is now 21, he was about 3. He was about 4 at that time, and he ran behind me, and I had to grab him because when the door opened, he was literally lifted off his feet, and I grabbed him and pulled him back in the house, and he's just as nutty as his godmother, because he said, "That was cool." And no, it wasn't cool, Dorothy. Don't know where you would land, because there were cars flipped over, trees uprooted, and everything like that. And looking back, you know, it was a scary situation. But I wish I was one of those people that I wish I had a video camera, you know, and things like that. These are crises. And the house we were in sat up on a hill, and the houses, I think it was 3 houses around us where, you know, the roof was ripped off, or, you know, something happened. The door was ripped off, and I remember the house across the street had a screen in their backyard that they had built, and it was ripped up totally, you know, like somebody just came and just tore through it, you know, but the house other than the screen was okay. But some of these things are dangerous, and a crisis is a crisis, even though to everybody the crisis is different. You know, some people say their family had a crisis and somebody died or somebody was killed, or it could have been just when somebody got very sick, and it causes, if that's the head of the household, it can cause a major issue in the household. So my definition of crisis is how it affects the group as a whole, whether it's a family, whether it's a community, you know, whether it's a class, whether it's a school. Whether or not you consider it a crisis depends upon how it affects the people involved in it. You know, anybody have any comments to say on that thus far? I know. It better be you. Anybody have any input and comments on crisis?
Yes. I was just thinking about what you said. I remember a fire when I was little. And, you know, like we said, some of the stuff is not necessarily funny, but at the time when you get a chance to reflect back on it, it can be hilarious. And they always tease my sister because we had a fire in the house, and they said that when she was running, that her legs was way far in front of her body. So they always said, I don't know how you did that. But, you know, I do, so everybody teased her from time to time. But I like the fact that being a child care provider, we always have to map out what to do in a crisis. So just like we post the emergency information on the wall or whatever, we always have an emergency route and a meetup place, whereas so if anything happens, we're going to meet up here at the mailbox on the corner or something of that nature. So I do feel as though in the crisis, we do have to have certain plans put in effect and know how to access things. Like I always hear Francesca mention this, which is a beautiful thing, even though she's talking about domestic violence, it's across the board, that we all should have emergency bags and paperwork and things packed up. We should have our important papers and stuff in the place where we can easily access them, money and cards and things that's of importance that we know when we moving forward, because a lot of times when these people come into fires or floods and things like that, they don't have paperwork, and it kind of slows down the process, even though they may immediately put them somewhere for the night or whatever, but moving forward, it's going to slow you down. And then because of 9/11, I was going to say 911, but same difference. Because of 9/11, they are extra tight with people's you getting your information. You really have to prove that you are who you say you are to get anything. So things like that we have to be mindful of and have them in our hands to reach. If anything happens, we have to be able to leave and have those things in safety and not be wandering back trying to find this and find that, because time is of the utmost importance, and it could cause a life.
That's right. And it causes your life, has a big difference in life or death for you, you know, and I'm glad that Francesca goes over that, because that's important, because domestic violence in itself is a crisis. You always know, you never know when you have to go now, you know. People can be in abusive relationships for years, but I always tell them, you know, the victim of abuse knows when it's time to go. Other people can't say, oh, you know, he's always like that, or she's always like that, don't worry about it. But they know, yeah, that person is always like that, but there was something different this time. And they know when it's time to go. And they're not going to have time, let me get the kids' birth certificates, let me make sure I have this. And I always suggested with my clients to pack a bag and make copies of everything. Everything. You know, if you, a green card, social birth certificate, and put it somewhere. If you can, outside of the home, at a friend's house or at a relative's house or something, so it's outside of the home, because if you're in an abusive situation, that person is looking for stuff, you know, why she got this all packed up here? Why did she have a weekend bag packed here, you know? And so that's important. Yeah, crisis is a crisis. A crisis is defined in my mind as what it is to you. A flood may not be a crisis to your kids. They're probably like, oh, this is cool, but it's a crisis to you because you're looking at it like, where we're going to live. We can't stay here tonight. Anybody else have any input on what a crisis is to them?
Well, this is Dr. James. A crisis to me is when somebody dies. I mean, I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
I'm not
I can deal with a lot of things. Excuse me?
Mm-hmm. I'm leaving this up to y'all. Everybody has their own definition of what a crisis is.
I can deal with a lot of things, but when someone like real close to you dies, that's something that is hard for me to deal with sometimes. You know what I mean?
Unexpectedly, or how about if they've been sick for a while?
Yeah, especially if it's unexpectedly. Yeah, exactly. Right. If you're expecting if they're 80, 90, 100 years old, then it's not so bad. Yeah.
Oh, Mom, Maria. Yeah. You see the freezer right there? Yes. Sit it right there, please. Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you, sir. I'm sorry. Dr. James.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that's a crisis to me.
Right. And everybody has their own.
Can you hold on 1 second? Is that Brendan?
Yeah.
Could you throw that soap in that thing too if you get it? All right, thanks. I'm sorry. Hello?
Yeah. But everybody
I was just talking to somebody. But that's a crisis to me. I can deal with a lot of stuff. When I was a little kid, a lot of things were crises. But I pretty much learned how to handle a lot of things. But I guess crisis, and also if you take my money, that's a crisis.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, like I said, crisis is different to everybody. And what makes it a crisis in my mind, and working in mental health for so long, what makes it a crisis in my mind is your reaction to it. 9/11 was a crisis to a lot of people in different ways. Some people they saw it, watched the news, and they went into immediate crisis mode. Oh my God, my sister's cousin's boyfriend works in that building, and it's at different levels. And how you deal with it is going to make the difference between how you feel about it and whether you react on the positive or negative.
Well, if I knew somebody that died in there, then it would probably been a crisis to me. But I didn't know anyone that died in there.
Right.
Oh, not to my knowledge, anyway. But my cousin, he almost got really hurt because he was coming out the subway right after it, and the smoke was all in her hair. She had tar in her hair and everything, when she got out the subway. But she didn't die,
Right. And we have to be careful how we react to it because, like you said, your crisis is your crisis. My niece works in the building next door to one of the Twin Towers. And when she came out of the subway that morning, when they came down, she was met with a lot of soot and a lot of ashes and stuff, and she didn't know what happened. She just came out the subway. She wasn't listening to the news. And she turned around and ran back. She didn't run back in the subway. She ran down the street. She was on Chambers Street. And Dr. James, you know how New York and Manhattan, the Manhattan Bridge crosses at Chambers Street and brings you at downtown Brooklyn. She ran all the way across the bridge, the Manhattan Bridge. She didn't, nothing in her mind said, go back in the subway, you might be safer. She ran ran down the street, down Chambers Street, crossed the Manhattan Bridge. Her mother-in-law worked on the other side in Borough Park. And she ran to her job. And her mother-in-law called my sister, who lived in Georgia at the time. You know, she saw it on the news and said, I just want you to know Dawn is here. She's at my job. She's curled up in the corner on the floor, and she won't talk. Would you talk to her? And my sister tried to get her to talk, and she wouldn't talk. My sister said, just leave her alone. And then she called my brother over, who was an EMT at the time, emergency service worker, you know, because that's who they called in, because he was registered for the Army. And they called all emergency workers in, and Oba drove down to the lady's job and got her. And Oba said he had to carry her out of there. She was so traumatized. And she wasn't in the actual thing, but that's what some people said. She wasn't in the actual thing. I said, but it still affected her in that way. And it took her 3 days before she spoke to anybody. She didn't talk. She came to Oba, because, you know, like, Oba's her favorite uncle. And she came to him, and Oba took her to his house and made sure she had something to eat, and then he had to go on duty. And so, you know, so he called her sister and asked her to come and stay with her. But different people react differently to crisis. You know, and children, sometimes they don't even realize it's a crisis. And some people say children don't feel it. They do feel it. They just don't react the same. Some kids, they do more playing, you know, and now these kids that suffered through some of that 9/11 or through a hurricane or through a tornado, you know, they may have been relocated to a hotel, and they sit in a hotel and watch TV all day. And the people are like, oh, the kids are fine. They're playing. They're watching TV. They're playing games. But that's how kids cope. We don't cope like children do. And that's the point I always try to make with people when they say, oh, she's fine. You know, when I used to do children mental health. No, she's fine. Everything is fine. Yeah, but your 6-year-old child is pulling clumps of hair out of her head. How can you say she's fine? You know. Mm-hmm. As adults, we don't realize what some of the signs of crisis in children are. And even with adults, with seniors, you know, you can't, you know, you can see somebody that's been through a fire or been through something and say, and she don't even have a reaction. She's just as calm as anything. But that calmness might be that person in crisis. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, it might be their reaction to be quiet, right?
Right.
Yep.
It makes perfect sense because people get into a catatonic state when when they face adversity.
That's exactly what happened with my.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's
3 days before she spoke to anyone. She would just sit in the corner and just stare out in the air. And my niece kept calling me. I said, she's going to be okay. Just give her time. You know. Yeah. And she was one of the people, her sister was one of the people, like, it's not like she was in the World Trade Center. I said, but that was enough for her. You know, we can't judge how other people
I had a parent. I was working at the school, and I had a parent. She was just watching it on the news, and he kept calling me in hysterics. And to the point where he said, I'm coming to get my son. I was like, no, you're not. I said, your son is fine here. Everybody is safe, and you cannot drive. Do not get in your car. Right. And I just had to stop him straight. Don't you come here. Do not come here. And she thanked me later because she realized she would have probably had an accident because that's just how shaken up that she was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we need to know what our limits are. My niece last week, when did y'all have that bad rain in New York?
Last weekend it was bad.
My niece is a bus driver, a school bus driver, and she had they have an assistant on the bus, and she said she was in the Bronx when it started pouring, and she was in Brooklyn. So as they got closer to Brooklyn, the FDR Drive was shut down. All these major highways were shut down because of flooding. And she said, but they were on a school bus. And so she said, I forgot what they called their titles, the people assistant on the school bus. She said there were no kids. It was just the two of them. And she said, oh, my God, all this flooding. And my niece said, okay, would you like some water? And he just calmed down. And the lady was in such a panic that she got up, and they were sitting in traffic because it was so much flooding. Cars had the water all the way up to their windshield and stuff. And she went into total panic. And my niece called me because, I was a mental health worker. And she's like, Auntie, I don't know what to do with this woman. She keeps saying she got to get off the bus. And hold on a minute. She goes, come back and sit down. Come sit down. The lady was trying to open the emergency exit in the back to get off the bus. And she said, I said, Cheryl, just don't be angry at her. Just talk calmly. She's in a panic. And so she kept me on the phone, and she said, I forgot the lady's name. And she said, do me a favor. Just sit down and calm down. That's when she gave her the bottle of water. And she said, we're on a bus. We're in a safe place. Those cars that are flooded, those people are climbing out the windows of their car and sitting on the top of their roofs of their car. They're trying to get out. We don't have to. The water is not coming up this high, hopefully. We're on a bus, a school bus. We're high up. Do you see any water on the floor? You can see it. The bottom steps maybe. And the lady said, no. She said, please, just calm down. We're okay, and we're going to be okay. And the lady calmed down and drank the water, And then so my niece said, thank you, Auntie. That was easier than I thought it would be. I thought I'd have to slap her. I said, no, don't slap her. And that never helps. But
anyway. Slap, you'll be surprised. The slap don't always work like you said. I recall my mom. She went the first time she even know that she had sugar. She went into shop. She just kept repeating herself over and over again, and my father knew something was wrong, and she was trying to get ready or whatever, and she kept repeating herself, where my shoe, whatever, where my shoe, you know what I'm saying? Whatever she was saying, she just kept repeating over and over again. So he figured if he slapped her, she gonna come out of it. She said, you slapped me, and I'm gonna get you. You slapped me, I'm gonna get you. So that began to be her new thing, Now she forgot about the shoe, and she said, "You slapped me, I'm gonna get you." She remembered that all the time. He said, "I was trying to get you out of that, man. I ain't know what to do." She said, "You slapped me, and I'm gonna get you." She couldn't care about that apology or nothing. So it doesn't always work,
Yeah. The crisis is serious. It can do really a lot of harm to your mental health. But we just have to know how to handle it. And most cases, calm, cool, and collected works. If the person is out of control, if they're hysterical, I've seen people where somebody is hysterical because of either something they witnessed or something that happened. And people are yelling, you got to calm down. Calm down. I've seen police officers do that. When I was in Florida, and I had to do a training with police officers, and I had to tell them about that. When someone is hysterical, yelling at them, and I asked them, it was like 30 cops in the room. I said, how many times have you yelled at somebody that was hysterical and they just immediately calmed down? It was like, no, it never happened with me. That never happened. No, it's not going to happen. That's not how you calm somebody down, by yelling at them or shaking them, especially if the person has a mental illness. You can be making situations worse instead of helping the person.
And I do like what you said, Adrienne, about talking calmly to people when they yelling and stuff like that, because you said, I remember when we were having a conversation, you said, now they got to work harder to hear what it is you're saying. So generally they'll tone down because they start to, hear you and, and they want to hear you. So then they begin to calm down, and then they can relate and respond to what you're saying. And I think that is a good practice.
Yeah. And people do it with kids a lot. They start yelling at the kids, and she don't listen. No, she can't hear you because she's yelling so much. All a person hears is the yelling. They don't hear any words. You know, and we're talking about especially teenagers. And I know those of you who worked around teenagers or been around teenagers who are, you know, what parents call hard to handle or whatever. Listen to the communication. Mom is yelling at the teenager's yelling at mom or dad, you know, and they yell at. And I said, when I used to work with teenagers, I would say, now, let's try something. And then I'll ask the teenager, what did your parents just say to you? I don't know. And then ask the mother or the father, what did your child just say to you? You have no idea. Y'all are so busy screaming and yelling, y'all can't hear each other. Mm-hmm. And so that's when the communication has to start, when they learn that, okay, let's stop screaming at each other and talk. You know, talk to each other so we can hear each other. But that's a lot of the time problems that happen when there's a crisis. I mean, and that's why it's good to have drills. You know, families need to have drills so they know, first of all, you know, we got to stay calm and listen to whoever's in charge and follow that lead. You know, my brother had a bad habit. Every time there's any kind of crisis in the house, whether if somebody's fighting in the house or if there was a fire or something, he would take off. He would out the front door. He'd go. And we might find him, you know, a couple of blocks later where somebody done called and said, you know your son is over here, right? He doesn't even have pants on. He just gone. He would just run. But that was his reaction to crisis, you know.
But see, if you're from Gagook, you don't have crisis. You just calm. Again, everything becomes calm because you know it's going to work out all right.
But you must not be from there because I heard him yell, "What?" in that church on Saturday.
Heard me yell, but about what?
You just said the word "what." You said "what," and that was it. That's all I know. You know, Bill, there's always got to be somebody to knock you down. That's what we call jealousy.
No, she's just, well, you're right, because she's praying, God, if I was from Gagook, I could be like Bill. I mean, it must be great. You know, but you see, that's what happens. I tried to get a few others to come down here with me, but they kept telling me, you don't want to go down there with those folks because we aren't going to get you. So I have to stay calm.
Well, thank you, Don. Thank you so much.
Anybody else had any experience with crisis that affected them long term or short term? Because some people, everybody, it doesn't affect you long term.
No, I've had a bunch of crises, but they never affected me. I just dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me for yawning. I'm almost asleep, but
I appreciate you. To join in with me.
Look, I called over 100 veterans today.
That sounds like a crisis.
You called over 100 what today?
Veterans.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's what you do.
That's what I do.
Yep. Anybody have any other crisis stories?
I'm sorry. I've had a lot of different things happen in crisis, but I handle them. People don't understand. Like we were sleigh riding once, and one of the guys was supposed to be at the bottom of the hill to tell us if any cars were coming so we wouldn't get hit. So we waiting at the top of the hill, getting ready to run and flop on the sled. He said, no cars are coming. So we run and flop. But as we get over half the way down, he said, but it's a tractor trailer. And we went, two of us went under the tractor trailer between the last two wheels of the truck and the two wheels of the trailer. That truck driver came back cussing and fussing, wanting to kill us.
Yeah, probably scared him. They probably threw him in a crisis.
I probably scared him. I mean, so that's why I say I can't think of a crisis where I went ballistic. I've always think about what I'm going to do and do it.
Yeah, and like I said, some people are calm during a crisis. We expect a certain behavior. Like, I was told that I was strange because I don't have a normal reaction. I worked in crisis for 20 years. I learned not to react. When they called me and said my father just had a major stroke, major heart attack, and they rushed him to the hospital, and I said, okay, did you get his medical papers? Do you have his VA stuff showing that he's a veteran, that he has benefits? Did you say? And my sister said, they talked about me for months. Like, we called everybody else, and everybody's like, well, what hospital is he in? Blah, blah. I'm not even in New York. They were in New York. What hospital is he in? Blah, 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 blah. Did somebody talk to the doctor? And Adrienne started going down this list. Did you do A? Did you do B? Did you do C? Does he have what hospital? What's the name of his doctor? We don't know. He's in that emergency room. We're supposed to go in there asking questions? I said, yeah. You're supposed to go in there asking questions. You're supposed to have, by the time you call me, who is in Florida, and everybody else is there in Brooklyn and Queens, you're supposed to have information so that if I have to call a hospital, I know who I'm asking for. I know what I'm asking for. Is he in ICU? Is he still in the emergency room? Where is he? What's going on? They were like, and they talked about me, during the family reunion. Adrienne is strange. If there's a crisis, call Adrienne. She'll make sure all the information is gathered and everybody got everything. I was like, yeah. Because that's my go-to thing. Ask questions. Going into a panic is not helpful. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Adrienne, Ivana created a list that I think is really great, too, where you put down a lot of information about yourself, and you also are able to ask questions when you go to a doctor. But she has a whole list of things that she's trying to incorporate to let people know to be on top of your game. So you listing all the things that they need to know, as well as have space for you to put information that they're given. And she's saying, well, this is something new that I think is very important and want to pass it out. I think that we should start, doing something like that, because that's another form of being prepared for a crisis. I thought that was really nice that she started working on that and putting that together. I think it's already done. She's been working on it for a couple of months.
And not to, that's a good idea. It's an excellent idea, as a matter of fact. I know because in Florida we had one of those. What's those people with the big red plus? Oh, the Red Cross had a form like that. People with the big red plus. They had a form like that, and I got it from them, and I would give it out to my family, to fill in. Who do you call? Where do you go? Your emergency people. We would give it to young people and adults, because you'd be surprised how many adults have no idea what to do in a crisis.
Mm-hmm. Allergies and what you're allergic to.
What your medications are, what foods you're allergic to,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's important to have. And if we can give one in every state, that would be awesome. But the Red Cross is not as active as they used to be. That's what I'm hearing now.
Right. That's true.
So we have to find
nothing's as active as it used to be.
No. We have to
even
find
the
an
guy
agency that they can
He's not
take on that
even
role.
as active as he used to be.
No, nothing.
I mean,
but one thing, Adrienne, go ahead.
No, go on.
I'm waiting this time. Go ahead.
No, go on. Ladies first.
I was just getting ready to say sometimes with people, everybody, like you said, everybody is different. I'm a person that works well under crisis, but then you have to be concerned about those people sometimes too, because a lot of sometimes they're not dealing with their own issues. Or I just say that because I realized that when my mom passed, I was that person that had to step up to the front and do whatever needed to be done. Me and my older sister, I made sure everybody was good. They had time to fall apart, grieve, and do whatever they wanted to do. And I hadn't grieved over my mom for a year and a half, and I really didn't pay it any attention until one day I went to look for her picture in the drawer like I usually do, or her obituary, and I couldn't find it, and then I just went off. I started hyperventilating and just panicking, and my kids ran in there like, "What's going on?" And I was like, I can't, and I couldn't even get it. I can't find it. They're like, wait, what are you looking for? And I couldn't find her picture. It was right in the drawer, but it was because I never got a chance to grieve. I never really dealt with it. I was making sure everybody else was okay, and so it finally hit me a year and a half later.
Right.
Wow.
With me, it was 2 years later. And I was like I don't know how to describe it, but my friend called me, and I was sitting in my house, the house where my mother lived with me before she died, and I said, and she called, and nobody answered. She called, and then she called me, and I picked up the phone, and I said, hello, and she said, what you doing? I said, nothing. I'm just sitting here in the middle of the floor. And I didn't realize I was doing it. I was sitting in the middle of the living floor, no TV on, no music on, just sitting there. And she goes, you all right? I said, I don't know. I don't know why I'm just sitting here. I just can't get up. And she said, I'm on my way. And that was the best thing that anyone could have done for me, because she came to my house, and she just came in, and she goes, get dressed. I'm sitting there with my house dress on. And she said, get dressed, you're coming with me. I'm like, where am I going? She said, you're coming with me. And she just took me to her house. And we didn't talk. We didn't do anything. And she said, this is not you. You're the one that's always in control. And she said, when I walked in and saw you just sitting there staring in the air, it scared me. And fear was the only thing I thought that this is Adrienne. She's everybody's strength. And she's just sitting, and it wasn't an anniversary when my mother died or nothing. It was 2 years, and I'm like, and it's like it just hit me. I'm alone here. I was alone for a long time. My mother came to live with me because she was sick, but it got to the point I had nobody. There's nobody to take care of. There's nothing to do, and I don't know what happened with my job, why I wasn't going to work every day. It might have been the weekend. But, yeah, I'm saying that to agree with you, to say that sometimes when we are too, quote, unquote, too strong to go into crisis because we're everybody's strength, it's still going to hit us eventually,
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Anybody have anything else they want to share? Oh, Bill, you wanted to share something?
I have been in a lot of different crisis positions, but I just deal with it. I just like when I fell in the East River, when the guy got me out, he said, man, that was rough. I said, man, let me tell you something. One or two things was going to happen. I was coming out or you was coming in. And they all bust out laughing and said, fool, you was almost dead and you cracking jokes. but that's the way I do.
But that's who you are, right?
Yeah, that's who I am. I'm just my mother, who I love. When she passed, I sat in the back. When my aunt died, who she died while they were getting ready to revive her. And I said, nope, she doesn't want to be revived. Mm-hmm. And then I went out and called my sister and said, our loved one's gone. I cry, but I don't have no whatever feelings, I guess, or go crazy or nothing. Because I guess I feel I'm the one that always got to be strong.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's one in every family. You know, but
yeah,
and like a lot of people got mad at me when the planes hit the World Trade Center because they all screaming, hollering, why would someone do this to us? I said, why not?
Why not?
I said, the United States have bombed people, have killed their presidents, have stolen their land. So why shouldn't something happen to the United States? You know, I always look at things differently. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. No, because I'm not from here.
Sorry to tell you, you are.
You can't prove it.
But you know, I think that's not to say that anybody deserves anything, but the shock. I mean, it's easy to understand that after you affect people's lives in such a negative way, they're going to try to retaliate and do something to get back at you, too. It's not that you're saying that these people deserve that. That 9/11 was hard for me. I felt like I was so worried. And it just happened to be my daughter's first day of work at the airport. I was like, oh, my God. And she just left me. Well, I had 2 kids and she was going to work. But so God bless in such a way that for some reason, no buses kept passing my daughter by. And she couldn't get on any buses going to that airport that day. And she was down the street at my mom's house, and I was so grateful. And then I was panicking because my son had a mentor, and he was in the Army, and he was working down there. But I found out he was all right, too. So I was like, well, I thank God for whoever lives he spared. But it just was a heartbreaking thing.
See, that's the other thing. If you believe and trust in the Almighty, He will take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, God has been with me for so many things. So,
Amen. Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to try to get something to eat, and I'm going to fall asleep. Because
thank you, Mr. Gray.
Thank me for what? Oh, no, it's my pleasure. See what it is. See, I would be on. So, Deborah, you're going to have to remind me who's on each day because I just be doing stuff. Like, I just got off the phone. I got on the phone around 9:30 this morning. I think I made my last call around a little after 5 or just before 5. And I fell asleep here on the couch for a minute. But by you texting me, the phone dings, and I wake up for any slight little thing. 2 mosquitoes be flying in the house trying to do that thing. I slap one of them, I'm asleep. But I'm a very light sleeper. I hear everything. And so I wake up and I said, I'm going to get on with y'all tonight for a little bit. And I want to thank y'all for last night because we had a good time last night.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I consider you a wise man, wherever you're from.
Thank you. I meant to call Evadier today because she probably mad at me, but that's all right.
It's not all right.
Got love
wait.
you.
It's not all right, and I'm not mad. Good evening.
I did what I said, but they still got love for you.
I can't
How you doing, everybody? No, because
I am good. I'm not mad. I welcome conversation. Thank you.
That's it. And see, that's what I said last night and on my first early morning call. We had something that black people very rarely have. Serious conversation, serious disputes, serious difference, and we all ended it great talking about, well, I'll be back next week for round 2 or round 3, you know what I'm saying? I enjoy stuff like that. That's the way we go. So now, can I?
He's like a father that lets all the kids come on the podcast and just fall. They just fight and battle and have out. He sit back and laugh until he has to interrupt and put things in order and shut things down. And then he said, now hug each other and tell each other you love each other. And then that's the end of the podcast.
Yeah, well, y'all, I've told y'all more than once. Y'all have made me so happy because I knew it was somewhere around in this world where a group of colored folks could get together and do things and do the right things and then argue about different things and then say, oh, yeah, I guess you are right, and keep on keeping on. That's the way it is. But I haven't found that in all these years. But y'all are doing it, and it's, I tell you, I'm so happy I don't know what to do.
That's good news.
It is. It's real good news. So I'm going to sleep, y'all.
Okay, you have a good night.
Who's on tomorrow? Because, see, I got to go to this
Tonight,
thing.
Mr. Williams is on.
Oh,
and
what time?
Tomorrow, 8 o'clock.
8
You got
o'clock.
a few minutes.
Oh.
I'll take a break.
All right. Okay. Somebody call me and wake me up about 8:15. I'll come on. Okay.
All right.
No, 7:50.
No.
Because he comes up.
No, he's
I
telling
know.
you he's
I'm
going to sleep a
sleep.
little bit.
I'm going to sleep a little bit. Look, my pressure I was at the doctor's all day yesterday. My pressure was 195 over 100. That was the low reading. Whatever's going on, I got to rest and get it because I want to be here for at least 5 more years. I really want to be here for
20.
That's right. I really want to be here for 20, but got to try to make 5. All right. All of y'all have fun. Keep on doing, and I'll talk to y'all later. I'll try to wait. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Awesome.
Yes.
Hello.
Back to
Yes.
the conversation.
Marcus.
Somebody else is there?
Yeah, Marcus.
Hello.
Huh?
Yeah.
Hi, we hear you.
I'm glad I
Hi.
have the announcer. I'm glad I have my announcer on. The person don't have to announce themselves because she feels the need to announce everybody else.
Yeah, she come
Very
in.
good.
She could.
But she didn't announce me. She just played the whole song that I asked her not to play. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Marcus,
Y'all didn't play my song.
I will, buddy. I will.
I didn't hear my song play.
We're talking about
I'll play yours
crisis
next.
situations.
Okay?
Hello. We're talking about crisis situations that people have experienced. Everything from what other people would consider a minor crisis to a major crisis that affected, cities, towns, and countries. And I'm asking everybody to share if they had a crisis in their life that fit any of those categories.
Oh, so you want to hear about my story? Okay. All right. Listen, okay. Come on, boys and girls. Gather around.
Take a seat.
God. Not a fairy tale.
I'm going to tell you all the story. Okay?
If it has anything to do
All
with
right.
bunnies, if it has anything to do with bunnies, Yvonne, just mute him, please.
The only one talking about bunnies is the host of the show. I didn't even say nothing about no bunnies, okay?
Okay.
All right,
I'm
this is
saying.
crisis. This is crisis, not relaxation, okay? Bunnies are different, okay? All right.
Tell your story,
So,
buddy.
Okay, so this story is like 2 parts, okay? So, when I was living out on the West Coast, and I was in California, and I was living in San Diego County. Very expensive, by the way. And they got a lot of issues out there. I didn't know before I went out there. But I went out there with my father because I was having some problems back here in the East. And I was just up against it everywhere. So he said, come on out here, your sister needs a little bit of help. Whatever, all right, legal issues, all that good stuff. Well, long story short, she ended up pretty much sabotaging everything that everybody did to help her so that she could claim a crisis and be a victim, but she really did that to herself. My baby sister called her out on it. My dad took basically her side because, quote unquote, she's a girl. And I ended up being an odd man out because I ended up with no place to stay. Because the apartment that we were staying in was basically my dad's apartment. I didn't have a job at the time out there, so I was just brand new out there. I didn't even have, valid ID yet. And so I was trying to get things together. He didn't have a job, but basically he was giving her everything. I got stuck taking care of the kids, which weren't my kids, were her kids. And everything just kind of volcanoed and just made a mess everywhere, the whole situation. She basically gave up the apartment without telling anybody that she was going to do that, and signed a voluntary vacate whatever paper, leave. But what she wanted to do was she wanted to get me to help her to pack her stuff up so that she can move, and then I was like, out, But it didn't happen that way. So I left. I went to a shelter. They give you, I think, 60 days to stay in their shelters out there, then you got to go. I stretched that out an extra 2 months. But at the same time, my eyesight was failing. So here I was without a place to stay. And I'm walking around, and I could tell that my eyes just ain't right. It wasn't bad, but I could tell something was wrong. So I went to the doctors, and they told me, oh, you're just tired. You need to get more sleep, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. They're like, well, when you go home. I said, no, I don't have one. And they were like, oh, okay, well, whenever you get at home. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. So I'm out there in California in the great outdoors, sharing my sleeping areas with all the other little animals in the forest. So there were, there were raccoons, a lot of them. Suckers are big, too. They will fight you or try to fight you. And one jacked me for my coffee, my Fritos corn chips, and my carrot cake. And I was just like, you know what? You too big for me to be tussling with. If you too big for me to be trying to fight, take it. It's yours. I got up, walked across the street, He was all in it, eating corn chips, eating the carrot cake, drinking my coffee. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And so I got jacked by Debo Raccoon. I did. And at this time, I'm broke. I'm penniless. I ain't got nothing. I ain't got a pot to pee in or a window to throw it out of. I ain't even got 2 pennies to rub together. You know, me and my dad, we fell out at this point because I went out there based on some, you know, basic guarantees he made to me, which he reneged on. But, you know, okay, you know, he's throwing whatever resources here and there to whoever else, but forgets about me. And I was out on the street for like 2 years. Only thing that really kept me going was the fact that, number one, I wasn't going to give nobody the satisfaction of saying that I gave up and I failed. I'm too stubborn for that. Number two, I wanted to, you know, pretty much show people, you know, okay, this might have happened and you might have had something to do with it, but it ain't go the way you thought it was going to go. And then number three, I knew that if I didn't continue to go on, even though I was in this dire situation, I was just going to be another number. I didn't want to end up like that. Too stubborn for that. So every morning I got up, did what I could do, used the library facilities to freshen up, you know, blah, blah, blah. Or my favorite mini mart gas station, blah, blah, blah. And they were quite gracious to me. And plugged into some resources. Finally got myself into a living situation. And finally made my way back east. But out of all of that whole time, I was in the middle of nowhere familiar, surrounded by nothing that was familiar to me. And here I am losing my vision. And I'm like, whoa, okay. How do we get out of this? Now, here's a sidebar to the story. I had to go to the hospital one day. So I don't like hospitals. I'll tell you that right now. So I'm in there and I'm bored. So I got on the hospital gown, of course, you know. Got on my hospital gown and some socks. And it's one of them gowns that open in the back. All right. Needless to say, no, all I had on was the gown. Okay, so that's it. And I left it open in the back for air. I don't know why, but I just did. At any rate, I ordered something from Dunkin' Donuts on my app. It chimed in. It said that it was being delivered right then and there. So I get up, run out the hospital room. I'm running down the hallway. My gown is open in the back, and it's just flowing in the wind while I'm running down the hallway. And everybody's looking at me like, you know, something's wrong with me. So here come the nurses and the orderlies running behind me saying, hey, you. I get up to where the desk is at. The delivery person's there with my order. So I say, that's my order? He says, are you Marcus? I said, yeah. I said, here you go. I said, thanks. I took it. I turned around. Everybody's standing around me like, what's wrong with you? I said, my order's here. Just come and get my coffee and my bagel. I didn't want him to leave. So I walked back to the room. Shortly thereafter, they kicked me out. So
of
that's
course.
my crisis. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Good story.
And a true one.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
That's unfortunate, but I believe everybody goes through something for a reason, so they can be prepared to help the next person, you know?
Mm-hmm. Or next person's plural, yes.
Well, I learned one thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Marcus.
Okay, last thing. Okay, I'm a little weird. Some of you probably can tell by now. But I look at a crisis as a puzzle. Something has to fit somewhere so that the whole thing makes sense. Because when it makes sense, it's not a crisis anymore.
Right.
You now have a step that you can step on to climb up to the next level. Because you're going to have another challenge present itself, and it could be a crisis or it could be something else. But I just have this thought in my mind that even with what I'm going through now with my vision loss, and I never thought I would have been here before, but I never thought that I would have ever ended up on the street with no place to live before. But I came through that. And I never thought that the people who were closest to me in terms of blood relation would do me the way that they did me. But I came through that too. So I said, this has been a series of things over and whatever, up and down. But as long as I keep an attitude that I'm going to learn something out of this and be able to use it, like y'all said, to help somebody else through something, or to just build myself up so that I get through it. And when I come out the other side, I can look back and say, wow, that was something. Turn back around and say, okay, onward. Oh,
like I mentioned earlier, to me, a crisis is something that happens in somebody's life to make them, empower them, and make them strong enough so when they come across somebody else in a crisis, and it doesn't have to be the same crisis, they're able to help them make it through, because it's something that comes from inside of you that empowers you to get through that crisis and to help the next person through theirs. My only problem is when people get to, I went through the same thing you did, and everybody's crisis is different, but you can relate to how they feel going through it, but you can't claim, I know what you're going through. And we got to be careful about that when we're trying to help people in crisis, because you don't know what they're going through, because they may be going through the same exact crisis you are, that you went through, but you're different people, and different people are going to react in a different way. And it's going to affect what worked for you might affect another person differently. But if you can give a tidbit or some positive input to make that person either A, start to work their way out of the crisis, or understand that I'm going through this for a reason, and I can understand that reason. And sometimes that's enough to help them cope better. You know what I'm saying? Does that make
Permission
sense?
to speak?
Yes, Rodney.
Thank you. So I love this. Somebody's playing the radio. I love the story that Marcus shared toward the end. I mean, the whole story was good, but the shared part in the end and what you're saying as well. I think we can I would tailor what you just said, because I believe that 50% of getting through is knowing that you're not the only one with. So as long as the person is being honest and they have experienced a similar situation, to say it like that. You may not know exactly, but I went through something similar is what you can say, so that they can feel, wait, really? It'll give them that hesitation, and it will give them that hope. And like you both said as well, when you experience a crisis, it does take you to another level. Sometimes it's just there to slow you down so you can regroup. It's extreme, but if you're a hard-headed person, you might need extreme. So you might need something that's going to just knock you off of your rocker. take you out of your comfort zone so that you can regroup. And the most important thing, I think, is that preparation is key. Preparation is key. And we should start sharing our experiences in that regard, because if you went through it and I went through it, or somebody you know went through it, and you can share that information, then it will help people prepare for the just in case. I call it the just in case. Just in case you happen to be confronted with this situation, these are some of the tools that you can use. And that's very important to me. Thank you.
Right. You're absolutely right, Adrienne. And thank you for that input, because we have to remember that. I remember I had a professor in college that said the crisis you go through, most of the time, it's not about you. It's about the next person, that you run into that might be in a crisis and maybe similar, maybe seem totally different. But it's your reaction to it that's going to make the big difference of how you come out of it, your response to it, Anybody have anything else they want to share?
Yes, I think people need to be able to express themselves, and nobody has to like it. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we need to be respectful to each other. We need to learn how to listen and communicate, because it's key and it's valuable. And sometimes people just need you to listen to them so that they can start the healing process. They don't need to always hear a lot of feedback. So sometimes you have to make sure you sharpen your listening skills so you can hear whether it is that person is in need of some feedback or just a listening ear, And
right.
I was in a group setting, and they had the social workers to pick different topics, and some of the people I heard two of the people say, "Oh, I don't know what the purpose of that was. That's not what we here for." Blah blah blah. But I'm just sitting there listening. But it was so many people that was able to give feedback and wanted to conversate and talk about the subject. Just because it's not what you feel like you need, and I said, doesn't mean that's not what other people need. So sometimes as a part of a group, you're a participant. You just stay still. You know what I'm saying? You hear, you listen, you learn. If you don't have anything that you want to put in, that's fine. But don't attack everybody, the people that's teaching and the people that's participating. And you want to give people they should have just shortened this, did that, not said that. I wouldn't tell my personal business. They just really was going through a whole bunch of different scenarios. But at the same time, you're not going to say that to the instructors, or you want to know, you want everything to be lined up just so the way you want to, but you're not the person in charge. The person in charge has the way, and I said they set the path on which you traveling on that day. They set the outline for the day. So if that's not your place, then again, you got to fall back and let things play out. And some people don't know how to do that. And that session for the other participants, and they was excited and they was happy about it, and they had a chance to share and say things in the setting that they needed to say.
That's right.
Also, just to add to the conversation, I agree about a crisis is not always about us as people going through what we're going through. It's about the next person. But I've also learned this, that a crisis doesn't make you. It only shows what you're made of. So if there's some things or some flaws or some chinks in the armor that you have, a crisis is going to show you where they are. And then I think the crisis itself, as was talked about tonight, helps you to develop those areas if I guess we have a desire to learn, to let go, and then to live. Because I realized this too. When I was going through what I was going through, I mean, I didn't say everything. There was a whole lot more that happened around that situation in a short amount of time. But I learned this. Going through it, I was able to identify, as Adrienne said, with people who are in that same situation as me. And I didn't think of myself too high to sit down and talk to somebody who just a few years earlier I had seen those people on the street and really hadn't talked to them to see what they were about, or what their day was like, or what a day in the life was like for them. And I got to realize that some of these people ain't so bad. They just fell off some hard times, and they're going through some things, and they're doing their best. And a lot of times people, honestly, even in those situations, don't want people to think that, oh, I need help. I'm down on my luck, because they've heard it before when people say, oh, if you need anything from me, just give me a call. Mm-hmm. 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 And you call them and you ask them, and they say, well, right now I'm a little busy, but call me back in an hour. We all know, most of us know what that means. Don't call back, because they ain't going to pick up the phone, Okay. But I got a chance to really learn some things. I got a chance to look at life from a different point of view. And, I got a chance to realize, no, this really ain't all about me, because there's more than me in this situation. But I got a chance to really talk to people. I got a chance to listen to them, conversate with them, even make friends with people. And just like we have a community here, people who are visually impaired, we had a community of people because they were all displaced and homeless. But we made up a community. And it was crazy how we all met in some of the same places, where we got services and everything. And I got a chance to see how that life was. And I must say that I was not embarrassed in the least bit, because I was proud of the people who, in spite of the circumstances that they were going through, decided that they were going to keep pushing through, no matter what. And we all had different goals in mind, but at least, people were still trying. They weren't giving up. So, I learned that. I learned that, and I learned another level of respect for people. So, it wasn't just about me. It was happening to me. Did I like it? No. But did I make it through? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And with a little bit of help from my friend, I made it through.
Wow, that was nice. But that's true, though. And there's always something good, if you focus on it, that can come out of a hard experience. I think that we go through experiences for a reason, and it's not always bad reasons. My personal pet peeve is when Christians, when things are going well, oh, thank God for that. Oh, I thank God for that. And then when things make a turn and not going so well, oh, the devil is busy. Now, why are you giving the devil all the credit now? When things were going well, God had the credit, or whatever higher power you ascribe to. It's always, as soon as things are not going the way you want it to go, Satan has all the credit. And I point that out to people a lot, And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess, sometimes God lets bad things happen to us. Sometimes we need the experience, and sometimes we need a reminder that, life isn't always bed of roses. You're going to have some down times, you're going to have some times, some hard times, and that's all part of our grooming.
Yeah.
I meant to ask somebody to put this up on the shelf for me. But anyway, thank you again, Marcus, and Deborah, and Abadne. Is there anybody else on that didn't chance to share?
Miss Carol was on too, and Dr. James.
Yes. Oh yes, Dr. James and Carol. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the input that people share on this line. I appreciate you. I appreciate your sharing. Because sometimes this can be a hard subject to talk about, because everybody is not willing to talk about their crisis, because it hurts sometimes. Sometimes I don't want to relive something that I've gone through and gotten over. I'm saying me, but I mean, I'm just speaking for people.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes, you can.
I went to this church one time over in East Orange. I think it's New Light. Is it New Light? They got two of them, right? They got one in Newark and one in East Orange, right?
Uh-huh.
What I'm talking about, right? The one in church that Whitney Houston went to in Newark. What's the name of that
Hope.
one?
New Hope.
New Hope, yeah. But they got a New Hope in East Orange too. And I went to the one in East Orange, and the deacon came up. He said, "Thank God for the problems, because that's how we learn."
That's right.
And you know what? That's true, because when we do, like if you went to school to learn math, what would the teacher do? The teacher would give you math problems, and you had to solve them. I think that's what God does with us. He gives us problems sometimes, like Adrienne said, and we have to do it. We have to solve them problems. But that's how we learn. So it's good to have problems sometimes. All right? That's all I wanted to say.
And it is good to have problems. But the verse tells us that God allows us to be tempted, but he will not allow us to be tempted beyond what we can
Bear.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, everybody's going through something. And just one of my colleagues, she had to, I'm working in Children's Protective Services. She had to do a removal the other day. The house was in deplorable condition, just filthy to the point of an infestation of cockroaches to the nth degree, and it's just like a terrible thing, and I just listened to my colleagues who, a couple of them are half my age, and they don't look like me, and I just listened to them, so judgmental. And she was just, she didn't even have anything. When I said I'm gonna have to remove the children, she said, "Yeah, I figured that." And so I said, "The woman's depressed. Nobody wants to live like that. So clearly she can't get it together to make the change that needs to be made." And she had services in the home previously, and what happens is she gets to, I don't know what makes her tell the people not to come anymore, but she goes, that's where she goes. And so it's a pattern. And she and her husband, they said, well, okay, we'll voluntarily let the grandparents take them, but the agency decided that they were going to go to court, and the judge did issue a removal. So now, even though the children are going to stay with the grandparents, a removal was done. So they are now in the custody of the county, and they are not in the custody of the parents. Because if the parents voluntarily have the grandparents watch the kids at any time, they could just go take them back. But the kids were, the conditions were just crazy. They would get to school and there would be roaches in their backpacks and in their lunchbox, and spoiled food, and it's just a bad scene, But I just listened to, and I said, well, clearly the woman is depressed. Nobody wants to live like that. That's not what she. So she, you can't throw stones. Yeah, but for somebody to do that to their kids, she doesn't care about her kids. You can't say that. And
you can't say that.
I'm at the point in my life where you can't say that. People, there's a reason that people end in positions that they end up in, and in the state of mind that they end up in. And so I'm like, you just can't blame, point fingers and call names and it's just I just sit there and I'm like, if they only knew.
Right.
Life can change. Life can change at the blink of an eye.
Yes, it
Life
can
change at the blink of an eye. You never know. You never know what could happen that could make your life change, where you could lose everything, where you could end up, living in substandard conditions, and you never know. So gotta help people and show them kindness.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Hal. That's something that we all need to look at. And, I've worked with those people, I'm saying those people, who worked with, because I worked for DCF at the time, and those patient workers that were assigned to go in homes and make an assessment. I had an older lady. She was an older Jewish lady that worked with me. And we didn't work together, but we knew each other because we were friends on the job. And so she would run things by me. I went into this house, and they offered me something to drink. Now, I laugh at this because, I grew up in a black household, and it was a black family, and they offered me something to drink, and I said, sure. And they gave me Kool-Aid that was made in a big jug, not a pitcher, and the cup had cartoons on it. And I said, and she goes, you don't see nothing wrong with that? And I said, no. She said, it looks like a big container that has something else in it, and that they made Kool-Aid in, and they shook it up, and they poured it in the cup. And I looked at it like, I'm supposed to drink this? And that was something that she wasn't familiar with. Growing up in a Jewish home with money, and they didn't even have glasses. That's the best kind of Kool-Aid.
Adrienne, when I was talking to so my coworker, when she was talking to the parents of the two children and she was like, it was she kept referring to their children as those kids. And those kids shouldn't have to have like that. And those kids, and she hung up the phone one time, and I had just gotten to my limit. And I said, every time you say those kids, it's like you scratching your nails on a chalkboard. Don't say that again. And so she looked at me. I said, those are their children. It ain't those kids. It's their children.
Right.
You talking to them, say your children. You know, don't those children. You say those children when you're talking around in here. Don't say that to the people. Those are their children. Their children. Oh my God. Just hearing every time, I'm telling you, every time. And then I finally I said, look, don't say those children, those kids again. just don't say that. And she said, oh, okay. I said, I'm sitting here and I'm telling you, you scratching your nails on the chalkboard. So she said, okay. So
that's good that they listen to you.
Yeah.
Permission to speak?
Yes, Leon.
Grand rising to everybody on the line. And I'm going to first start off by saying that all of what I heard, and heard a lot of stuff, I can definitely most appreciate what Dr. James said. Couldn't put it no more better than that. You couldn't give another better example than that. Mr. Bill Gates, he said some real deep stuff too in the beginning of what he was saying. Christ is give each one of us that's on that line, on this line, who's made it through, the character that you carry with you. The character is not something that you do when people's watching. It's what you do when people ain't watching. It's not what you go through, people. It's how you handle what you go through. You can imagine what it's like to be jacked by a raccoon, sleeping on a bench. I could not imagine what that would be like. I wouldn't even want to try to imagine what that would be like. I felt that through this phone. And so I don't want to be long-winded because, like I said, Dr. James, for me, he said it all. And I yield.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank somebody tell me what time it is, please.
Alexa, what time is it?
7:34.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to thank you all for coming on. I really appreciate it when we can have a good conversation. And I like to challenge people with certain conversations because we get in our own feelings and we start to say things that may not be the most appropriate, but if that's the way you feel, that's the way you feel. You know, I've been a mental health counselor and a crisis counselor for a number of years, and I had to learn that, you know. It's not my place to say, how dare you feel that way, but understand that it's based on your experiences. So my prayer is that you took away from this that crisis is different to different people, and we need to be compassionate and, and go by that old saying, there by the grace of God go I. You know, what if it's you? How would you like somebody to react to you, to come at you? You know, you've been homeless. How did you get there? You know, that's not an appropriate or a encouraging question to ask. Say something encouraging to somebody that's going through stuff. You know, not you always, how did you get in that situation, or you always find yourself in that situation. My challenge to you all tonight is to find, if you hear of somebody or know somebody who's in crisis, whether there's a death, whether there was a fire, whether something that you think is of their own doing or not, try to find something encouraging to say, something that might uplift them. You know, if you can't think of anything encouraging to say, just say nothing. Because sometimes saying nothing will work just as well as somebody who said something deep and thought-provoking. So just think of that. And I'm glad that you all came on. And I bid thee good night at this point. And don't forget, Sanford Williams comes on behind me. His podcast starts at 8:30. Chime in with him. I hate when I miss his podcast because he always has something kind of deep going on. But and I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for the prayers and the thoughts that came out for me going through what I'm going through. And I appreciate it. And I'll be back. You know, I missed a lot of podcasts because, you know, of the situation that I'm dealing with right now. And part of it is that I don't have Wi-Fi, so my phone doesn't even work half the time. But I want y'all to keep lifting me up as I keep lifting you all up, people on the podcast and the guests on the podcast, you know. And y'all all have a blessed night.
Can I put on the song?
Thank you. You too.
You can stop the taping, please.
Avadana, you got that?
No,
I'm
not on the app.
We can keep Miles.
Yeah,
We
Miles.
can keep Miles in prayer.
Yes, keep Miles. Yes.
Wow.
He's doing okay, but still.
He's doing great. I try to talk to him every day. Oh, I didn't talk to him today. He had a procedure today. I don't know if Carol spoke to him today.
He had the procedure yesterday. He's doing a lot better. He's feeling better. And I guess some of the heaviness in his legs has lifted, I'll say.
Oh, good. Good.
He's able to move his feet around because he couldn't do that before.
That was one of his biggest concerns.
Mhm. So he's coming along.
Thank you.
And he said the doctor said they're not going to discharge him until the ulcer heals.
Right.
So
they said it'd be at least 7 days.
Yeah. So they're patching him up.
Thank God.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right.
All right.
Y'all have a great night. I've been running all day.
Good night, Adrienne. Good night, Carol.
Good night.
Good night,
Lori. Miss Lori?
So, yeah, I just came from outside, so I'm sorry.
Hi, Lori.
Forgetting you guys are hours ahead of me. I'm sorry. But I will keep everybody in prayer and being silent. Okay? God bless everybody.
Okay.
I'm glad everybody's doing good.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, you guys. Good night. Good night.
Alexa, play music.
Here's a mix for you on Amazon Music.
I'm going to stop the recording.